Wow, what a good weather today. So I decided to take a little bit of a walk outside and talk to you about what has been changing around us, specifically about Twitter and why I'm really excited about it. So let's get right into it. Okay, it's really nice weather. If you see everywhere it's yellow. Well, it's not Seattle, but it's Phoenix. And I guess yellow is the color of deserts. Until and unless you have been living under the rock, you would have heard that finally Twitter has accepted Elon Musk's offer of $44 billion, which was around like $54 per share. In my opinion, it's fantastic news. Now, before diving into why it is a fantastic news, I wanted to cover a little bit as to how I had known about internet. So obviously, just like everybody else, I started using internet late 90s and maybe early 2000s. And back then, internet used to be a very open platform. There were no inhibitions. Nobody stopped you from talking to each other. It was a place where you could come together and meet people and talk about anything you wanted. I mean, yes, there was some moderation in terms of, you couldn't display violent behaviors and start bullying people, but it was not at a point, it was not up to a point like how it is now. Anyways, I still remember we used to have things like Yahoo groups. We used to have things like Yahoo Chat, GeoCities, Orkut was one of the social media platforms. And I used to still live in India in those days, and I made a lot of friends back then who were not in India, some in Canada, US, Europe, and many other places. I still remember I used to have like this guy who was like fantastic in terms of making digital art, and we hit it up really well. He did a lot of work for me when I was in college, helping me build a website for one of the technology festivals we did in our college. Anyhow, what I want to say is that internet used to be a very much open place where you could meet people, you could talk to them about any topic you wanted, and nobody came running behind you saying, why did you say that and why did you say this? Fast forward 2004, 2005. Those were the days when Facebook started picking up. In fact, 2004, if I remember, 2004 or 2005 was the first time I created my profile on Facebook. And since then, these platforms grew really big. We started having, we had Twitter, we had Instagram, we had WhatsApp. In fact, just to give credit where it is due, the world became much more connected place. A lot of people came together. In fact, I met a lot of my friends there on Facebook who I studied with back in my school days. As these companies became bigger, their control and power also kept on increasing. So much so that today a huge part of the world's internet population is on these platforms. So if I have to list 5 companies which really control the overall internet in the world, it would be Google, Apple, Facebook, Microsoft, and Twitter. Now, obviously, Twitter is the smallest of the bunch. But as you know, I mean, there is a considerable amount of engagement on Twitter. It kind of became a de facto place where you would go for getting the latest news, topics which people are talking about, and so on and so forth. So, of course, we were talking about how these companies became so big that they started controlling the mind share of the internet at large. Especially if you look at Facebook and Twitter, where a lot of discussion happens. There are a lot of people of different ideologies, different political affiliations, and so on and so forth. So what exactly happened? As with any other company, as you grow bigger, you start realizing the potential or power you bring. For most of these companies, it was all about the amount of data they had. And data is a very important aspect of information. I mean, if you have a lot of data, you could use that data to find out how people think about different things. And when you find out how people thought about different things, it's kind of easier for you to personalize advertisements to them, sell them right products, and so on and so forth. I think it was all fine up until this became more like human-driven versus, technology. You see, technology and protocols are always very much neutral, right? You set up a protocol to monitor certain kind of behavior, and whether it is happening from left, right, or center, most of the times those protocols will apply those standards and you will be fine. But when humans come into that workflow, well, things change, right? And that's why I think that's what happened with these companies. So as these companies grew really big, it became evident that now they were controlling a big part of the world's digital presence. And on top of that, they were also getting access to a huge amount of data, patterns, thoughts, which people were sharing with each other. And thus, it became much more prevalent to them that it's not only about how they are going to position ads or personalize content. They could actually control ideological presence on these platforms too. Up until the time, it was all automated and there was no manual presence, whereas when employees could go ahead and think about how to do something, it was all fine. As soon as humans came into this workflow, things changed for good. For example, now a person who was moderating the content or deciding on who should stay and who should not stay could basically decide or change stuff based on his own thoughts versus whether the content was right or wrong. And then came this flood of so-called fact checkers. The folks who I hate the most on these platforms are the fact checkers. I mean, who knows what are the credentials of these people? There's like a group of 10 people or 15 people, they go out there and check facts. And sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. Why should anybody check anything? I mean, if I have a thought process about something, I should be free to post it. Of course, if people don't agree with it, they will not follow me or they will comment and they will disagree with me. Fact checking is good, but I think it has its own limitations. Anyways, we are not talking about that. Anyhow, as the world grew, internet actually became a very moderated place. You never know who you are going to offend doing what. And given that was the case, everything started getting moderated. Whether you were hosting a server on Amazon Web Services, whether you were tweeting something on Twitter, whether you were posting something on Facebook, whether you were going on YouTube and posting a video, everything was moderated. There should be moderation, but that moderation should be within certain protocols, which should be highly transparent, rather than just flagging stuff because, say, the platform itself doesn't agree with me and then call themselves the flag bearer of free speech. The main important thing which I wanted to discuss is why this change which has just now happened is very important. Let's talk about what does it mean for Elon Musk to acquire Twitter. I think it's a big shift. In many ways, this is the start of decentralization of the internet at large. I think Twitter in many ways is a place where people come, they share their thoughts, and they consume thoughts from others. And over the years, it continued to become a much more moderated and closed place where people were thrown out, probably because they thought in a certain way, which was not compatible with certain other ideologies. So given Musk promises to bring a complete overhaul of this platform, to me, it's a great start. I was reading through a bunch of his comments and tweets which he did in the last, I would say, a week or so, and few things caught my eye. First one was that he said he's going to open source all the algorithms in terms of how do they personalize content, how do they moderate content, how do they identify humans versus spams. The second thing which he said, which is very important, is that he's going to make sure that every individual who is there on Twitter is an actual human being and not a spam bot. I think it's very important, right? I think currently Twitter is full of like thousands and thousands, maybe millions of accounts which are simple spam bots. They're not even people. So I think for me, these things are very important. This is going to help bring more confidence in people who are on the platform. But the way people have reacted to it is kind of beyond my imagination. I mean, I've seen news where hundreds of thousands of people have left the platform or deactivated their profiles. I really don't know why. The second thing which I saw that, people on far right have started to join Twitter back, thinking that it's going to be fantastic for them. But I guess the key here is that Musk's goal is to bring a balance across both these ideologies so that it becomes much more conducive for people to sit together and talk about things rather than fighting and being scared that they will be thrown out of the platform simply because they have a certain kind of ideology. I will let you guys enjoy a little bit, the yellows of Arizona. It's pretty nice weather right now. Not very hot, not very cold. And then you can see a whole bunch of yellow flowers here, so fun. Let's talk a little bit about the repercussions of him buying Twitter. Now, as soon as Twitter accepted his offer, Tesla shares fell down by more than, 20% or 16%? I don't accurately remember, but I heard that they fell down by $125 billion in market capitalization, wiping out somewhere around $21 billion for thousands of people have left Twitter as a platform, which is like completely weird. I just don't know why would you do that. It's good, right? I mean, he's saying that he's going to bring a balance between all ideologies and everybody could be on Twitter, feel safe, and talk to each other. It's very natural to see a little bit of a correction in market capitalization of Tesla and how people are reacting to this. But in my opinion, the reason why this is happening is because people are a little bit worried that this is going to fragment Musk's attention and may cause the company to kind of lose focus. But I guess as long as Musk isn't in charge and knowing him how he's a very determined person and focused, it should be all fine. I'm not really worried about value. In fact, I think this is a great opportunity for Twitter to actually become a $100 billion company, because the value is not created by simply the products. It's also created by usefulness, which it brings to the table for its users. I think we are witnessing a turning point in history. This is going to become one of the examples which change the course of history in terms of digital ecosystem, where companies would be forced to decentralize and reduce control, because control is good, but overtly controlled systems cannot facilitate a robust democracy. Before I conclude the video, I'll just say a couple of points. Number one, it's a great moment in history. I think this will go in the books as a turning point in digital ecosystem. This will result in decentralization and loosening of controls which have got through on the internet at large. Number two, I think it's great for functioning of a robust democracy where everybody could speak what they want, express their views on stuff what they want without having to be worried about getting restricted or stifled. So hope you guys have a good day and look at the beauty of Arizona. And until the next video, see you again soon. Bye.